Hola y bienvenidos a todos. Hi and welcome along everybody to this Speech Travel Languages Spanish session. This lesson is part of our Level 2 materials, Block 1. This is week number 3 and the first of two parts of recordings for this particular week of lessons. This first part will be exploring las relaciones, relationships. Primero vamos a calentarnos. First, let's get warmed up, shall we? Empezamos como siempre con el alfabeto en español. Let's start as we always do with the Spanish alphabet. Puedes decirlo conmigo, you can say it along with me, o puedes, si quieres, escuchar y repetir. Or you can, if you wish, listen and repeat after me. Vámonos, let's get going, shall we? El alfabeto en español. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, Y, M, N, Ñ, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z. Muy bien hecho. Very well done. Ahora contamos. Now let's count, shall we? Esta noche lo hacemos en grupos de 10. Tonight let's do this in groups of 10. Escuchamos y repetimos. 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. Muy bien. Continuaremos con el calentamiento. Let's continue with our warm-up as we practice our basic questions and answers. You'll see from the bottom of the screen that I've added on the questions from Lesson 1 and Lesson 2 of this block. ¿Cómo eres? What are you like in terms of your physical and perhaps your personality description? And a question, ¿con quién vives? With whom do you live? Vivo con, I live with. In this way, we can practice some of our members of the family we met in lesson number 2. Vamos, let's get started, shall we? I'll say a question and try to respond in Spanish. Hola, ¿qué tal? ¿Cómo te llamas? ¿Cómo eres? ¿Con quién vives? Muy bien, well done. Now don't forget you can rewind this part of the video back and practice those questions a few times over. Why not try to do the first few without looking at your notes? You should be capable of doing that a little bit just now. Muy bien. Okay, so as discussed, we're going to take a look in this lesson at talking about our relationships that we have with our friends, family, and people around about us. We'll also be touching on some verb conjugation, the present tense. As you can see from our knowledge about language box, that's one of our key areas of grammar we look at in this block. Aquí tenemos some of our words from our last session. Let's try to say them after me. Tonto, hablador, sensible, orgulloso, tímido, trabajador, inteligente, amable, simpático, gracioso, estúpido, egoísta, perezoso, extrovertido, antipático, comprensivo, travieso, sensato, severo, malo. Why not take a moment to go through each of the adjectives in turn and make sure that you're happy that you know the English for each of them. Now we're going to do a little adjective agreement workout. In our previous session, we learned the rules around making adjectives agree, didn't we? That there are certain rules that apply when changing our adjectives from the masculine singular version, the bit we find in the dictionary, to the feminine version. And then some other rules when we need to change the spelling if we're talking about more than one person to make them plural. For this adjective agreement workout, I would like you to provide for me the feminine and both versions of the plural for the adjectives given in the masculine column. The adjectives are gracioso, orgulloso, extrovertido, malo, inteligente, sensible, hablador, and trabajador. If you need to, refer back to your notes from the previous session where we looked at adjective agreements in lots of detail. Hit pause here as you work your way through this activity. Okay, let's check how you've done. Gracioso can become graciosa, graciosos, or graciosas. The same with orgulloso, orgullosa, orgullosos, and orgullosas. A similar pattern is formed when we look at the words extrovertido and malo. Apologies there, malvada is given as an option there too. A little bit worse than malo, bad. Malvado would be evil. Maybe you do have somebody in your life that you need that adjective for. Let's take a look then at inteligente and sensible. You'll see for these, they follow very similar rules, where the E doesn't change in its feminine format, but then you have a lovely S added on for the plural format. The same happens in sensible. And finally with hablador, we add on the A for habladora, then habladores or habladoras, with a similar pattern being formed with the verb trabajador. Trabajadora, trabajadores, and trabajadoras. Make sure you've got all of those answers correct and pop us a message if you're unsure about your adjective agreements. Now let's bring everything together from our previous session where we looked at adjectives agreements and also the words for S and so on, is and are. For each of these sentences, 1 through to 6, only one of them is correct in the options highlighted. For example, in number 1, we have mi amiga es tonto, tonta, tontos, or tontas. The correct answer here would be tonta, wouldn't it? The word crazy or silly, made to agree with the word amiga, the noun, feminine and singular format. Hit the pause button again once more as you choose the correct option for each of the sentences on the screen. Okay, mis hermanos son, my brothers are, your brothers would be sensatos, sensatos, hermanos. Mis abuelos no son muy, my grandparents are not very, severos, abuelos, no severos. We then have the option of trying to choose the correct noun for number 4, and we're given trabajador. Trabajador is the word hardworking, written in its masculine singular format. There's only one noun here that is masculine and singular, and that's mi amigo. Mi amigo no es trabajador. Luis for number 5. Choose the correct part of the verb ser this time. Luis es muy amable. Is. Luis es muy amable. A similar option for the bottom with mis compañeros, my colleagues. Mis compañeros son muy habladores, are very chatty. I hope you did great on those ones, everybody. Well done. Now, for this next activity, you're going to want to have a piece of scrap paper and a pencil together as I get you working through some sentence constructions, giving personalities as a reason why you may or may not have a good relationship with people around about you. Are you ready for your sentence building activity? On the right-hand side, you'll see there are all of our lovely adjectives that we met previously, and they're given in their masculine singular format. Remember, they might need tweaked according to what sentence I'm asking you to build. So one of the easiest ways to talk about our personalities, sorry, our relationships with other people, is to talk about what their and your personalities are like. So let's try a few sentences on your scribbly piece of paper. How would you say he is hardworking? Now you might want to hit pause after each one. He is hardworking, es trabajador. She is chatty. Es habladora. We are outgoing. Somos extrovertidos. They are understanding. son comprensivos. I am shy. Soy tímido. Now, if you're one of our female learners, soy tímida. Muy bien. So now on the left-hand side, I've given you another little chunk that you can add to your sentence building. These are frequencers. They tell us how frequently, how often, a particular personality trait in this case may be displayed. Siempre, a menudo, a veces, de vez en cuando, raramente, and nunca. Try them after me. Siempre, a menudo, a veces, de vez en cuando, raramente, nunca. Well done. So hit the pause button here as you work your way through figuring the English out for each of these frequencers. Maybe there's a couple you've come across with me before or you've seen in your prior learning before joining Speech Bubble. If there's any you're unsure of, then use your dictionary, great dictionary usage, to see if you can figure out the meaning in English for each of them. Hit pause here as you work your way through that little task. Okay, so siempre, always. A menudo, often. A veces, sometimes. De vez en cuando, from time to time. Raramente, rarely. And finally, nunca, never. Now, by adding these simple frequencers on the front of our personality descriptors, it helps improve our language. It helps give a little bit more detail to what it is that we're writing or saying, and it makes our written work or our spoken work a little bit more complex and more mature. So let's try a few out, shall we? So we started out a moment ago, we had the sentence, I am shy. What about I am always shy? Now, before you scribble, notice that the words are deliberately placed in front at the left-hand side before the verb. So to say I am always shy, you are literally saying always I am shy. Siempre soy tímido. Let's try a couple more, shall we? From time to time, I am stupid. De vez en cuando soy estúpido or estúpida. We are rarely chatty. Somos habladores raramente. Raramente somos habladores. This one works a little bit either side. They are never selfish. Nunca son egoístas. Muy bien. So now let's have a little bit of a reading task. In this little reading task, we're going to be reading a little bit about people talking about their friends, their best friends they have in their lives. You'll hear some lovely personality traits in here too, as well as other little bits and pieces of Spanish, where the person's describing what sort of relationship that they have with that person. Before you listen to the track, take a moment to read through the text and see what you can understand from the Spanish so far. Think about your prior learning. Think about words that might look like English. Hit pause here as you take a little moment to work your way through the text, making some notes as you go along in English. You have this text also on your Speech Bubble handouts if you're one of our existing students. Okay, so let's now have a little listen to what Anna has to say about her best friend.
Me llamo Ana. Mi mejor amiga se llama Clara y somos amigas desde la infancia. Clara es muy simpática. Para mí, un buen amigo es honesto, leal y sensible. Y Clara tiene todas esas cualidades. Siempre es graciosa, pero nunca es tonta. Tiene buen sentido del humor y le gusta charlar mucho.
Pues aquí tenemos mucha información sobre Ana y su mejor amiga, Clara. Lots of information here about Anna and her best friend, who is called Clara. She says, we are friends since childhood. Clara's very nice. For me, a good friend is honest, loyal, sensitive, and Clara has all of these qualities. She's always funny, but never stupid or silly, crazy. She has a great sense of humour and she likes to chat a lot. Now let's try another one. In this case, we're hearing about Guillermo and his best friend who's called Pedro. Again, hit pause here as you work your way through this task as a short reading activity. How much do you understand from what he's saying about his friend? Shall we listen to him now then, everyone? Let's hear if you can think a little bit more when you hear the audio track as well. Aquí tenemos Guillermo.
Me llamo Guillermo y mi mejor amigo se llama Pedro. Somos amigos del trabajo. Es muy comprensivo y amable. Nunca es egoísta ni agresivo. Es muy extrovertido. Le gusta ir a fiestas y bailar mucho. Tenemos mucho en común. En mi opinión, un buen amigo debe ser generoso y Pedro siempre es así.
Muy bien. Now remember, you can listen back to those audios a few times over, and we would recommend that once you've figured out the English meaning alongside my descriptions just now, that you do listen through to it a few times over, and why not try to do it even one more time without looking at the transcript too, to get your ear tuned into the Spanish. So my name is Guillermo. Guillermo is the Spanish version of the name William. My best friend is called Pedro. We're friends from work. He's very understanding and kind. He's never selfish nor aggressive. He's very outgoing. He likes to go to parties and dance a lot. We have a lot in common. In my opinion, a good friend should be generous, and Pedro is always like this. I hope you did well with those two little readings and listenings. So now let's take a look at some of the key phrases when we're talking about our relaciones. To say that you get along well with someone, in Spanish you would say me llevo bien con. Give that a go. Me llevo bien con. Me llevo bien con. Muy bien. Another option there is to say that you don't get on well with them. You would do that by simply putting the negative no in front of the sentence. No me llevo bien con. No me llevo bien con. And after con, of course, you would add in that person's name or that family member. For example, me llevo bien con mi padre. No me llevo bien con mi hermana. Another option is to use this sentence here. Looks a little bit more like what we would say in English. Tengo una buena relación con. I have a good relationship with. Tengo una buena relación con. The option for this would be to change buena to mala. I have a bad relationship with. Tengo una mala relación con. Tengo una mala relación con. So, for example, tengo una buena relación con mi padre. Tengo una mala relación con mi hermana. Fantastic sentences, but what makes them even better is if we can use por qué, why, and explain the reasons why. One of the ways we can do that, as mentioned previously, is to give a little bit about their personalities. Tengo una buena relación con mi padre porque es tonto. Tengo una mala relación con mi hermana porque es egoísta. So let's take a look at some other little sentences that can help us out. We're talking about our relationships we have with people in our lives. You'll notice down the centre of the screen, I've got some words that have me in front of them. These sentences mean he or she does something to me. Let's try them out in Spanish. So the one that we have at the very top here is me inspira. Can you try it? Me inspira. Me critica. Me anima. Me apoya. Me irrita. Me respeta. Me escucha. Me ignora. Me aconseja. Me entiende. Me protege. Me aburre. Now for a bit of fun, let's try a few of them together, one after the other. Are we ready? We're going to do a little chunk. Try them after me. Me inspira, me critica, me anima, me apoya. Hope you're doing well. Me irrita, me respeta, me escucha, me añora. Me aconseja, me entiende, me protege, me aburre. Okay, bien. I hope you've been trying them out aloud and practicing your Spanish as best as you can. Now, each of these words, as I said before, talks about what somebody does to you. For example, me inspira at the top, I'm probably guessed you can tell it means he or she inspires me. But what about the rest of the words and sentences you can see on the screen? Me llevo bien con mi hermano porque I get on well with my brother because he inspires me. Me inspira. What about the rest? No me llevo bien con mi hermano porque me critica. Hit pause here as you work your way through each of these little verbs, seeing if you can figure out from prior learning or the fact a lot of these look like English what the meaning is. Okay, let's check how you've done. So the English for these expressions are going to pop up on your screen now, one by one. How many do you think you reckon you got correct? Okay, me critica, to criticize, anima, cheer me up, apoya, supports me, irrita, irritates, respeta, respects, escucha, listen, ignora is what you think it is, ignore, aconseja, to advise, entiende, understand, protege, protect, and finally me aburre, to bore me. No me llevo bien con mi hermano porque me irrita, me ignora y me aburre. Me llevo bien con mi hermana porque me inspira, me anima y siempre me apoya. See how lovely your Spanish sentences can sound? Why not try a few out for yourself just now? Okay, folks, that's the end of the first part of this particular lesson. Join us in the second part of our lesson where we're going to be looking at those verbs in a little bit more detail and talking about verb conjugation for AR verbs. Muy bien hecho a todos y hasta la próxima. Well done, everyone. Until next time. Adios.